Hi, my name's Michelle. I'm from Mint Cakery, and today I'm going to show you how to make our cinnamon buns, which is in my new cookbook called Mint Cakery, and it's just all of our shop secrets. So first off, we're going to start with our brioche dough, and then we're going to let that set a little bit and then roll it into our cinnamon buns. They are so delicious. They are definitely our best seller in the shop. You just can't beat the smell of hot cinnamon sugar coming out of the oven. It's just the best. First off, we're going to have our warmed milk, our yeast and sugar. So we're going to add that to the bowl. Then just give it a little whisk. So I'm using instant yeast. You don't need to bloom it at all. So I'm just going to give it a whisk just to dissolve it into the milk. And then I've got some melted butter here, so I'm just going to put this straight in. This is almost like a cheats kind of brioche dough. We're using melted butter. We're not even going to really need it. It's delicious in the end, so don't panic about it. Give that another little whisk. And then straight in with our flour, salt and eggs. So easy. And then onto the mixer. So we're just gonna mix it for a couple of minutes until it combines. I am just gonna scrape down the bowl. You have to watch out though when you're making doughs in a stand mixer. They do kind of like to climb off the bench. So keep an eye on it, don't run away. And just have it on a medium speed. Okay, so now your dough's combined. You wanna put it into a container. I'm just going to spray it with some oil just so it makes the dough easier to come out of the mixing bowl. So that's it here. That was just 3 or 4 minutes. So it's all combined. It's quite nice and silky. So yeah, we don't need this one. I don't think you can tell the difference. So why bother really? I've just got a dough scraper too. So I'm just going to get that off the hook and put it in my container. Spread it out to the edges. I also like using a little lunchbox like this too, because when you go to tip it out to roll your cinnamon buns, it's already in a really nice shape, so it's super easy to keep like a rectangle for you to roll. Then just get a bit of Glad wrap and put it directly on the surface of your brioche. It just stops it from drying out. Then we're going to put that into the fridge just to chill down so it's easier to roll. Okay, so I'm going to make the filling. It's just melted butter, brown sugar and some cinnamon. So we're just going to mix it together. Heaps of cinnamon, it's a whole tablespoon, into a little medium bowl and then just give it a mix. I like to do this first so then it kind of has time to almost set up a little bit again. If it's quite runny, it will go off the sides of the brioche. It'll still work, it'll just make your life a little bit harder. So that's all done. I'm just going to leave that to the side. I'm going to get my brioche dough out of the fridge. So this is the brioche dough that has been set. As you can see, it has risen a little bit, so that's what it will do. Take off the Glad wrap and just sprinkle your bench with some flour. Because we've put the spray oil in the bottom of the container, it's really easy to just pull it out. Give it a little squish down. Whenever I'm rolling brioche, we make it in the shop every single day, but I have to always use a tape measure. You want it the same every single time. I will roll it and I'll be like, yep, that's the right size. And then I go to measure it and it's still wrong. So I do it every single time I make it. Grab your rolling pin and just gently roll the width of it like that. And then I like to flip it over. So I like rolling lengthwise more than widthwise, because as you're rolling, it kind of widens already anyways. So we want the length mainly. And then just lifting it up, you don't want it to stick, but you also don't want to use too much flour either. So it's a bit of a finding the sweet spot. Okay, I'm gonna measure it, see where I'm at. 440. So I've got another 60 mils to go. And see, because I've used the lunchbox container, the edges are nice and square. So this means you don't have to do any trimming of the brioche. Every single piece is exactly the same size. 460. See, I would have stopped there if I was in the shop and didn't use a tape measure. So do it every time. One more little roll. And then I think we'll be there, and then we're going to flip it around again. Sweet, so that's 500. I like to flip it around, and then we're going to get the width now. And see, it's already at 230, so not too much more. Still trying to keep a really nice rectangle shape. If it starts to kind of go off at the edge, just bring it back in and keep rolling. 250, easy as. So now I'm going to get my filling. Put it on the center, and then we're just going to spread it out with a palette knife. Okay, so remember, every single bun needs to have the filling in it. Go right to the edges. If not, you'll get one of the buns will have no flavor, so take your time. Just pushing it right to the edge. And see how, because the dough is cold, it has almost made the butter set a little bit more. And that's good, because then it's almost like you're spreading a paste, not like a big mess of filling. Okay, right to the edges. Remember, this side on here is one piece of brioche of cinnamon bun, and this is another piece on the other side. You want it to have all of that filling. And then we're just going to start rolling. So I'm just going to get my thumbs, quite a nice tight roll. I just start from one end, and then I just move my way down to the other and keep going. If you get any flour like that, just dust it off, or else it kind of stays quite dry in the dough. So that's why you don't want to use too much flour. So I'm just going to brush all of that off. And then I'm going to square off the edges again, because then every single piece will be exactly the same. They will all have a nice amount of filling. Okay, so now we're good to cut it. This makes 12 buns, so I find easiest just to cut it in half and then keep cutting from there. So you can measure it if you like, but I am just going to try and trust my eyes for once. So in half, half again. So now we have 4 quarters, and then each one I'm going to cut into 3. So if your dough kind of becomes a little bit misshapen, you can just give it a roll on the bench. And then each one into 3. If you do have one that's a little bit smaller, I like to put it in the middle of the tin. It just has a bit more space. So I've lined my tray with some baking paper. Just shape them as you put them in the tin as well. See, that one's a bit smaller, so I'm going to put that one in the center there. So they will prove and they will spread a bit more. So you just want to put them evenly in the tin. So I'll kind of do like a bit of a rough guide, and then I'll go back and fix them and make sure they're all even. You don't have to be pedantic like me, but I'm going to, because that's my personality. Okay, so these are ready to prove. They're going to double in size before you cook them. If you don't prove them at this point, they will be rock hard. You have to be patient. So a lot of recipes will say, you know, prove for 30 minutes or prove for an hour, whatever the recipe is, but you also just have to trust your gut. They're going to double in size, you're going to press down, and they're going to be nice and light and fluffy. So see here, it's still quite dense, obviously. It's a dough. So it has to be well proved, and then you have a nice fluffy bun at the other end. So I'm just going to Glad wrap the surface of the buns and leave them in a warm place to double in size. Okay. Okay, so here's my proved brioche. See how much bigger it is. Pull off the Glad wrap. If you touch it now, it is really nice and light and pillowy. And they're also all touching, which is a dead giveaway. So the whole tray is full. If it doesn't look like this and the time is like going on a bit, keep proving it. You could just be in a really cold house, especially in winter. It will take longer to prove. So like a hot water cupboard or a oven, that is off, will do the trick. So this is gonna go into the oven now for about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, so while our brioche is proving, we can make the cream cheese icing for the top of the buns. So I've just got my softened butter into the bowl of your stand mixer and also the icing sugar. So we're just gonna beat that until it's really nice and light and fluffy. And then we're gonna add the cream cheese afterwards. If you add the cream cheese early on, you'll notice that it breaks down the proteins in the cream cheese and you'll almost get like a bit of a sloppy icing. Once it's been beating for a couple of minutes, just scrape down the bowl. You want to get all of the icing sugar fully incorporated. I also like to take the bowl off the stand mixer and just really give it a good scrape. And then we're going to whip it up again for another couple of minutes and then add the cream cheese. Scrape down your bowl again, then put your cream cheese in. You can add some vanilla if you like, but I actually like it plain. A nice fast whip just to get that cream cheese fully incorporated. And that's it all done, nice and easy. So when our buns are ready to ice, we're just gonna put it into a piping bag. So I am gonna leave it in the mixer bowl in the meantime and just give it a little whip up just before we use it. We'll get rid of any air bubbles. They smell so good. So this was about 15 minutes. I always like to check it around 12 minutes just in case. So it always depends on your oven. They are nice and fluffy and golden. And if you push down, you can kind of feel that the dough is definitely baked because it has like quite a good spring back. So we have to leave those to cool before we ice them. You could spread it on now, it'll just go everywhere. But if you want it nice and like even, then leave it to cool about 15 minutes. Now it's time to ice the cinnamon buns. They're still nice and warm, but they're not too hot, so it's not gonna melt the icing. What we want to do is we want to flip them out of this tray. So I've got 2 cooling racks. Flip it over. Then just give it a shimmy out of the tin. And I also like to put a new piece of baking paper down, just so it's a bit tidier, especially when you cut them. Get your second cooling rack and flip it back over. So now I just get a serrated knife and just gently cut in between each bun. This makes it easier when you're going to pull a bun off to eat. You've kind of already helped this along. So then I've just got my cream cheese icing that I have made in the mixer and I'm gonna fill up my piping bag. I'm not using a nozzle, I'm just using the cut edge, which will work well. Scoop it into the piping bag, and then we're gonna pipe it on top. So in the center of each one, just give it a good squeeze. So I like how nice and uniform this is. You can spread it just over the top, but I like how each bun has its own little bit of icing. Then get your palette knife, just spread it around a little bit. Just tip some icing sugar into a sieve and then just sprinkle it over the top. Yum, they smell so good. Cream cheese icing and the cinnamon with the sugar is the best combo. So this is the cinnamon buns all done. You have to give it a go. They are so delicious. Definitely a shop favorite. So if you want to have a go yourself, grab a copy of the book, and we've got so many more delicious recipes as well. So yum.